All right, guys, I know there's a lot of confusion surrounding the conflict between Israel and Palestine. In recent days, Israel has launched a massive airstrike offense against the Gaza Strip. But to really comprehend this conflict, it's helpful to understand the events that have led up to today. In the most simple of terms, it goes like this. Israel exists right here in this spot on the eastern end of the Mediterranean. These 2 points on the map are Gaza and the West Bank, together known as Palestine. But it didn't always look like this. Following World War I, there were approximately 65,000 Jewish immigrants that had immigrated to Palestine, then under British rule. That's when Britain implemented the Balfour Declaration, which promised a Jewish homeland. Now, as Palestinians were driven out from the newly designated Jewish territory, clashes began, and they would continue for years to come. During the next decade, an additional 100,000 Jewish immigrants arrived. And yet, until the early 1930s, the Jewish population in the region remained under 17%. But that changed following the Holocaust, when international efforts to establish a Jewish homeland in the land of Palestine increased. And by 1947, the UN adopted a proposal that would divide Palestine into 2 states. The Arabs were designated 43% of the land, despite the fact that they made up 2/3 of the population and owned over 92% of the land. Jews were given 56% of the land, despite being only 1/3 of the population. That's interesting math, isn't it? Well, following this announcement, Jewish leaders began occupying major Palestinian cities, expelling 300,000 Palestinians before the State of Israel was even announced in 1948, the result of which led to a military offensive by neighboring countries, which overwhelmingly objected to the establishment of Israel in the land of Palestine. But they were no match to the military superiority of the Israeli army. The Israeli military effectively cleansed much of the territory, and following the 1948 war, they encompassed 78% of Palestine. Now, although a ceasefire was declared, peace would remain a faraway thought, as now 700,000 Palestinian refugees fled into neighboring Arab states. In many ways, this was the catalyst for the escalating instability in the region. In 1967, another war led to the Israeli occupation of the remainder of historic Palestine, the land that we recognize today as the West Bank and Gaza. It became clear that while the UN and other Arab countries verbally championed the plight of the Palestinians, there would be no international effort to actually enforce their right to self-determination. And in 1987, the first Intifada took place, a rebellion by the people of Palestine. Thousands were imprisoned and over 1,000 Palestinians were killed. In 1993, the Oslo peace talks began, which laid the groundwork for the apartheid system that we know too well today. And whatever economic and social rights the Palestinians had left, well, they were then dissolved. Now, by 2000, a second Intifada took place, claiming the lives of 5,500 Palestinians, as well as more than 1,000 Israelis. The Oslo years were a failure in policy by the Palestinian leadership, and in 2006, Hamas became the democratically elected leadership of Palestine. Now, Hamas is still considered to be a terrorist group by the U.S. government, and it's on the State Department list of terrorists. However, when taking this entire historical narrative into context, you must consider that any attacks against Israel by Palestinian groups is the unavoidable outcome of an aggressive military occupation of a people. The people of Palestine are suffering. They're still paying for the decisions of those who rashly acted on their behalf over the course of the last century. Thousands of homes are bulldozed and destroyed by the Israeli military every year against international law. The Palestinian people are being terrorized on a daily basis with checkpoints, methods of dehumanization. And all of this is happening in an open-air prison in which they are confined. You know, we only need to look back at the apartheid states of Northern Ireland and South Africa to see that what's happening today in Palestine is no different. Now, our elected leaders may be turning a blind eye to this injustice, but you don't have to.